5 tips that will help you to take better photos today. Here we go. Oh, and make sure to watch till the end for my bonus tip that will enable you to never miss the crucial moment again. Number 1, angles. You often see an awesome subject in the field, maybe a cool bird or an animal, and start shooting right away without thinking much. And that can be a big mistake. So next time you're in this situation, I want you to take a few safety shots and then step back and think for a few seconds, am I taking this shot from the best possible angle? Or should I maybe go higher or lower to make my subject shine? The best wildlife photos out there have a great sense of intimacy about them, and that can be achieved by getting direct eye contact with your subject and being at eye level. Oftentimes I see people shoot up straight into the sky or into a tree, or they stand up and shoot down onto their subject, and that rarely leads to good results. You get a shot, but you don't get the shot. To get that, you often have to jump into the ocean or crawl through the mud, which is not always fun, but definitely worth it in the end. 2. Mixing it up and doing things differently. Too often we get caught up in doing the same thing over and over again, like how we always done it or how others have done it. I used to only focus on taking one style of images with a clean background, a nice perch, and a perfectly positioned bird. And while that's a style I'm mostly known for, it started to feel empty after years of focusing on it. I still love capturing those beautiful clean images, but it's not my only goal anymore, and now I capture a great variety of images when I'm out there in the field. Trying to do things differently is also important when you're visiting an area where other people photograph every day. You can either stand with everyone else or try to think outside the box and create something more unique. One of these moments arose for me on a road trip when we were photographing Uluru in Central Australia. At sunset, everyone is in the one spot getting shots. The moment the sun is gone, everyone jumps into their car and drives off. Not us though. We decided to stay longer because we thought we saw the Milky Way rising right behind Uluru, giving us some fantastic photo opportunities that everyone else missed. In a recent video, one comment was, can you actually take nice images of a bin chicken? Which is the loving name Aussies give to the white ibis because in fact they like to hang out next to bins a lot. So let's see, can you take nice images of a bin chicken? Funnily enough, one of my most unique images is also of a bin chicken. I noticed that the sun would be on such an angle that when the birds fly back to the rookery, their heads would be projected onto their wings, giving a really cool kind of silhouette effect. So for the next week, I spent every afternoon at that rookery, and after taking thousands of images, I got one image just the way I had imagined it. Wide or tight, on the ground, in the air, with the sun behind you, shooting into the sun. They're actually endless options when it comes to making your subject shine. So if you mix things up, do things differently, think outside the box, you will be able to even capture awesome images of a bin chicken. 3. Don't be static. We all like to get a little bit lazy from time to time and get caught up in the moment and don't move much, don't we? We just start shooting and don't think about everything else. But actually, by using your legs and moving around a bit, you can change the look of your image dramatically. Sometimes just a couple steps to the left or the right can give you a much better background, like a nice distant out of focus hill instead of the blue sky. In this peregrine falcon example, I noticed the bird sitting on a cliff and I walked from the left to the right, maybe 30 meters, creating a whole series of extremely differently looking images simply by moving myself, even though the bird never moved at all. So whenever you're out there, don't just focus on the subject, freeze and forget everything else. Once you've taken a few images, step back and look around if there might be an even better spot to take images from. And if you really want to mix things up, why don't you start capturing some video clips of the birds that you're photographing? That will give you the ultimate collection of the bird because now you have moving footage and stills. And now that you've taken some awesome images with some of my tips already, it's important that you learn how to get the most out of your raw files. And this is why I would love to help you with my masterclass and my PROSETS. With my PROSETS, I enable you with just one click to transform your dark, dull raw files into a fantastic starting point. And in my masterclass, I teach you step by step all the necessary things you need to know in Photoshop to make your own images look amazing. So if this is of interest to you, make sure to check this out down there in the description. 4. Know your gear. It's important to set up your camera right and learn how to use it blindly. Too often I'm out there with people in the field, and while I take nice images, they fumble with their camera and just can't find the right buttons and settings. For instance, I would not be able to take the images I'm taking if I didn't set up double back button autofocus on my Canon mirrorless cameras. Being able to use one button for eye tracking and one button for spot autofocus enables me to use the best autofocusing method for the moment in the field and only miss very few shots for being out of focus, because I can quickly change between the two methods. So whenever one method doesn't work, I can use the other. Besides the right settings, you also need to learn how to change things on your camera without actually looking at the camera. Your hands just need to know where they have to go to capture images and to change the most important settings like ISO, aperture and shutter speed. If you actually have to look at your camera to change settings or actually go into the menu or press multiple buttons, chances are by the time that you're ready, the moment it's long gone. I've done many videos on how I set up my cameras and I think is the best way to set up, especially Canon cameras. And I've also made a few PDF guides that are linked for you down there in the description, where I share all my settings with you so you can easily follow along and set up your camera just right. It's also important to pick the right shooting mode that you're most comfortable with. I love shooting full manual because I like full control, so I set ISO, shutter speed and aperture all by hand on the camera, so the camera doesn't have to do any guessing or metering for me. But I think for most people, actually using manual with auto ISO is the best way to go, because then they don't have to constantly think about exposure and check the histogram all the time. This is where mirrorless cameras are really awesome, because with them you can see in your electronic viewfinder whether an image is too bright or too dark, and you can have a histogram displayed in the viewfinder as well. So badly overexposed or underexposed images are pretty much a thing of the past with those cameras. 5. Lighting and weather conditions. Light and lighting play such an important role in photography, but we often completely neglect it and end up with images that don't look like the way we want them to look like at all. Here in the studio, I can control the light by using different LED lights, for instance, but outside we pretty much have to deal with whatever nature's throwing with us, unless you're happy to use little helpers like fill flashes that can add a little bit of extra light and pop to certain situations, especially when you're shooting in kind of duller, darker environments. Personally, I love shooting in overcast conditions because it gives us nice and even images with not many shadows, and I can have more creative control when I edit those photos. But I also love shooting in low sunlight conditions with beautiful golden light. What I really can't stand is harsh sunlight where you get strong shadows on your subject and washed out colors. Shooting in these kind of middle of the day conditions can also give you something called heat haze or heat distortion, where literally crooked air kind of comes up from the ground, ruining all your photos, giving you no sharp images at all, and there's actually nothing you can do about it. So I would recommend during the middle of the day, have a siesta and focus on early morning hours and late afternoon hours to take the best images possible. The conditions and lighting also have to match the subject you're wanting to photograph. If I'm at the beach, for instance, or at a lake, I want nice low sunlight to give me gorgeous blue water and nice vibrant colors. If it was a cloudy day, all these colors would be gone and would just look muddy and gray. Whereas when I'm in a forest, I really don't want to see sunlight because I get all these highlights and really dark shadows and overall kind of mottled light that sometimes makes it impossible to photograph. So having nice overcast there is much better. And if you love action photography and want to capture awesome flight shots, for instance, you don't only need the sun, but the wind starts to play an important role as well. Because birds, just like airplanes, like to take off and land into the wind. So if you want to capture well-lit images with the birds facing you, landing right towards you, taking off towards you, you need the sun in your back, and you also need to have the wind blowing from your back towards the birds so they can land into the wind. Whereas if the wind is blowing into your face, all you get is gonna be bum shots. And now the bonus tip. Learn to find the subject in the viewfinder. Sounds easy, but it's actually not. How many of you can grab their camera, point it at something without looking through the viewfinder, and then when you look through the viewfinder, actually have the subject right in the viewfinder? I bet not that many of you can do that right off the bat. But this is a crucial skill for you to learn, especially if you want to photograph action. I've been out with so many people and it takes them a very long time to find the subject because they look through the viewfinder and then try to find a bird or whatever else they want to photograph. And by the time they do, their subject is long gone. So learning this skill is very important, and it's actually quite easy for you to do at home, or for instance, if you're in a blind and you're bored and not sure what to do. So take your lens, take your camera, pick a spot in the distance, and then try to point the lens at that spot without looking through the viewfinder. Then look through the viewfinder, and hopefully the spot you wanted to point your camera at is right in the viewfinder. At the beginning, this will likely be not the case, but after a while and with a bit of practice, you'll get better and better at it, and you will be amazed how many awesome images you will be able to capture because you are now so much faster at finding the subject in your viewfinder. And now it's time for all you guys to put into practice what you've learned in this video, so head out there. But before you do that, please give me a thumbs up for the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye guys!